Right. Thank you, members. Good evening and welcome. Supposed to go through some housekeeping, so we'll do that. We are not expecting the fire alarm to sound this evening. If it does, please leave the building through the fire exit. Meet outside at the fire assembly point. Officers will direct us to the fire assembly. We always welcome people to speak at the meeting, although this is a formal committee meeting, at least in Borough Council, and not a public meeting. The members of the public ready to speak. We have any? Okay. Will be invited to speak, or there would be given 3 minutes. People wishing to speak on an item on the agenda are allowed to do so before the debate starts. Once the once the debate has started, however, it is not possible to invite or receive comments from the floor. And we obviously want to be as inclusive as possible, but we won't tolerate any disruptions at our meetings. And I can't see it with the mass crowd here tonight, but should we have disruption, then we do have the power under the Council's constitution to remove people from the meeting or continue in private, neither of which we would take part or wish to do so. We want to be... Right, so councillors will be using tablet devices, which we all seem to have in front of us. The meeting will be recorded and will be uploaded to the Council's website. If any members of the public prefer not to be recorded, then do please contact a member of staff. If you're planning on filming or recording the meeting, then do please let us know so that we can ensure that you're not filming members of the public who do not wish to be filmed. The Chair reserves the right to ask any filming considered to be intrusive to be stopped. More information is available on the Council's website. Right, I'm Alan Broadhurst, Chair of this committee, and will be chairing the meeting tonight. Have we got any apologies?
We do. We have apologies from Councillors Attrill and Broadhurst.
Thank you. I'm told there is no public participation.
There is not.
Thank you. Members, do members have any declarations of interest to make? If so, please indicate now. When called, please state the nature and the reason for the interest. You can of course, declare interest when they occur to you in the meeting. Right. The minutes of the last meeting, held on 1st of March 2023, as these have been to full council and accepted at full council, can I now approve these as a true record? Do I have a proposer, please? Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, James. All agreed? Thank you. Right, Chair's report, when I find what I've done with it. This is short. I will, of course, start by welcoming Councillor Cllr Baker to this committee. I'm sure that he will make a big impact. I've just turned my computer off, never mind. Warning though, George, I stood and was elected in 1993 and I'm still here. It does get to you after a while. I'll also congratulate Councillor James Duguid, who is now in the Cabinet of the Borough Council. I'll thank him for the enormous effort that he has made trying to ensure the return of a much-needed bus service for our area. I'll also congratulate Councillor Dave Pragnell, who is now Deputy Mayor of the Borough. I gather it's his wedding anniversary today, so we'll give him an excuse for not being here. And Councillor Maud Attrill was now Vice Chair of this committee. I'll also express a thanks to the committee to ex-Borough Councillor Tim Groves for his contribution to our LAC, and we look forward to continuing to work with him in his role as County Councillor for a large part of our area. After much delay, I can announce that we should see the return of a bus service between our area and Eastleigh bus station, and have been given an anticipated launch date. Before, we've been told it's likely to happen, but now we've actually been given a date. And that date is the 17th of July 23. Hampshire County Council are in the process of finalising the details of the route and timetable, and these details will be released as soon as they are confirmed, hopefully before the end of the month. Thank you very much. Report of the Area Manager.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, members. Just the 4 recommendations on my report this time. I'll just run through them very quickly and leave it for you guys to discuss. So the first one was the recommendation to install a bin on Monmouth Close. The second one was to install a dual waste bin at Flexford Nature Reserve. The third was to approve the allocation of £495 to install 11 Dragon's Teeth at Ashdown Road. And then also for members to note the good news stories from the recent months. So I'll just run through those very quickly. As you'll be aware, we awarded up to, I think it was £1,000 worth of grant funding across several groups. And as you'll see in the report, there's a nice picture of the Happy Bunch Over 70s Club celebrating the Coronation Day. And you'll also see in the reports a picture of some nice new bins that have been installed at various locations, and also the new bench that's been installed on Brown Hill Road. That's it, Chair. Thank you.
No, not at all, not at all. I'm going to read from a script which is going to hopefully not be very dry. I just want to paint a picture of my experience of living in Charnwood Crescent for 8 years. And start by saying, basically, I speak to lots of people on my street, and I, like other residents, fully support the yellow lines that have been recently added to Ashdown Road, and fully support the addition of the Dragon's Teeth in the gap between the yellow lines on Ashdown Road and Sycamore Road, the section of road that we're talking about. It's a small but vital section. In the time that I've lived in Charnwood Crescent, inconsiderate parking on verges, and even parking on lawns and crossing pavements to go from the lawn in front of the flat onto Ashdown Road, where there isn't a drop curb, has become a real and increasing problem. I'm really happy to say that the double yellow lines on Ashdown Road have made a very positive improvement. Now it's possible to drive down Ashdown Road or pull out Charnwood Crescent into Ashdown Road with a chance of seeing and avoiding oncoming traffic, and the ability to see pedestrians crossing in this section where the double yellow lines are. It's safer in this section, and there is better access for emergency vehicles. However, there is a gap. There's a gap between the yellow lines on Ashdown Road and the yellow lines on Sycamore Road, and this gap is still being used by 2 to 3 residents or tenants of the flats to park fully on the verges. It's worth noting that each resident of the flats has a garage and a parking space in front of their garage. Also, there are now more spaces available in the space that was previously reserved for a mobile library, but often there are still spaces in this space whilst people are still parking on the verge. So I can only conclude that it's not a necessity to park on the verges. At times there is pressure on parking in this area, but it's often due to the extra cars parked here by one of the tenants in the flats on Ashdown Road running a car recovery business from home. Why Dragon's Teeth are needed in this area is quite logical, it's quite obvious. Cars parked on the verges in the gap between the double yellow lines still block the line of sight for drivers, and it's hard to see pedestrians crossing the road behind and in between these vehicles. It ruins our verges. It's a mud bath in wet weather, it's bare soil in summer. It damages the amenities under the verges. And it's an eyesore. Verges for Hiltingbury and Chandler should be treasured. They should be protected. They are as important a visual amenity as our trees. Allowing parking on verges declares that they are a legitimate parking space. Are they? Having allowed this parking, it's spread up Ashdown Road, and residents are parking half on verges or fully on verges instead of parking on their drives or on the road. In Cllr Crescent, cars park on verges in front of flats, and this causes friction. People are taking matters into their own hands. I'm sad to say, when letters are ignored, there are people who are letting down tyres. It is a real problem. It's destroying the amenity of our area. Dragon's Teeth in this small section is simple, it's cost effective, I believe, and it's supported by residents. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, members, questions, and I will say that my intention is to take items 1, 2 and 4 together, and to take item 3 separately to allow a more adequate debate about the Dragon's Teeth. So, questions, members?
Chair, I think the report that we had back from officers was with a recommendation that the Dragon's Teeth should go in. And if I may refer to you as Louise, I don't think you particularly highlighted the point, but I think that you did mention people having to dodge between the cars to get across the road. There is parking on the other side of the road adjacent to where the Dragon's Teeth are proposed to go in. So I think actually the safety issue I would ask is a question which our officers considered in making their recommendation.
Maud. I hope you don't mind me using Christian names, because that's how we talk normally.
Right. My concern about the Dragon's Teeth is everything. I agree with everything that has been highlighted regarding the parking, as I'm aware of the inconsiderate parking of residents on Ashdown Road and on other roads. Is that when we install Dragon's Teeth, what will happen is that it moves the parking problem further down the road. So in fact, what will happen is they'll start parking down Cllr Crescent, outside the houses, and basically further down the road, which will start to irritate, I think, the other residents. For me, the solution is to actually hopefully develop a parking space where people can put their cars, because I think we've got basically a high density of, because of the flats, we've got a large number of cars for a very small area, and there isn't the parking spaces. So personally, I would like to see looking at finding alternative parking spaces close to the flats, which people can use, which hopefully would alleviate what is really inconsiderate parking. People should not be parking on verges, yet they still do. I don't know what I can say about that. But that is, for me, I'm afraid I feel the Dragon's Teeth will just shift the problem. And that, for me, is not something I think will actually solve it. Thank you.
Actually, I was saying, were there any questions?
Oh, sorry. About that, David.
I didn't ask for statements, I asked for questions. If there aren't any questions, would someone like to move that we approve items 1, 2 and 4 on recommendations 1 and 4 on items?
Oh.
Moved by Maud. Is that one second?
George?
Sorry, James. And George is seconding. Right, debate, members.
As the proposal, shall I begin? I fully appreciate and understand the points that my honourable colleague on my left was making in her question. However, the risk is that we do move some of the parking down the road. The other possibility is, as our speaker has said, what we might actually do is encourage people to park where they have ample opportunity in many cases to park, and by making it more inconvenient for them, we may force them to do what they should be doing, which is using parking spaces and indeed garages, which are quite often available to a number of these people. I do think the safety issue is quite important, well, very important actually, and it is very difficult when we have a heavily congested area, tremendous concentration of families, quite often with two cars, sometimes two cars and a van in fact. But there's quite a lot of parking in Richmond Close as well, and car parking allocated spaces in front of garages, as well as there is behind Ashdown House and that area, which is the area that isn't properly used. I do think there may be an argument that some people have. They want their car to be in an open, visible space because of a concern about vandalism. And I would think that it would be appropriate, well, I would ask if it was appropriate for the council to talk to the Residents Association and landlord as to whether a CCTV camera could be installed in order to make people feel more secure in parking in those spots. But that's a secondary and separate issue. I do also think that we perhaps, as a council, could be... We tried to get the police to enforce this, and our previous councillor was willing with me to put notes on car windscreens and say, be more considerate. And I have done that on occasion and remonstrated with some individuals, not just in this immediate area of the Dragon's Teeth, but further along on Ashdown Road. And I'm quite happy to get into a fairly heated debate and argument with some of these folk, because I quite enjoy it, to be honest. But nevertheless, most people aren't, and they are the people that are being inconvenienced, not me. But maybe we, as a borough council, would be able to have an approved piece of paper we could put on windscreens, which is not legally enforceable, I'm sure, but nevertheless says to people when they're parking on curbs further up down Ashdown Road that this is mightily inconsiderate and not helpful to the environment. So I'm very pleased to propose that we do adopt this, the Dragon's Teeth, in this limited area where they've been proposed. Thank you.
I can't actually remember that the sticker that was produced was actually produced by the Borough Council, so it might still... Yeah, so we might be able to get a copy of the same one printed. George, do you wish to speak?
Good behaviour easier for people and discouraging bad behaviour. So I would hope that Dragon's Teeth would provide a solution.
Right, thank you for that. Well, I'll add a couple of personal comments. One, I do actually believe that it is the right thing here to put the dragon's teeth on. I'll also own up to, when I was a young apprentice, I was an apprentice electrician wiring that estate up. I wired the houses in Chandler and the flats at the bottom. So I do know the area from quite well. But one thing that I do have a slight problem in, even the area where I live, parking is now at a premium because cars are bigger than the garages. You know the problem. I mean, I'm fortunate I can actually get three cars on my space if I need to. But it is a problem all over. And I would be very nervous if the council started getting involved in providing extra parking spaces. Because the danger would be then that other people would come along and say, well, you've done it for this lot, you've got to do it for us. And it would be, I feel it's a danger, would be setting a precedent. And it's something I think that we'll have to come back to on it sometime. But I think it would be a bit dangerous. But no, I fully support the dragon's teeth. When it was, we discussed the principle last time, I think we were at Thorndon, if my memory serves me correct. I supported it then, so I'll still support it now. So, we've got a proposer and a seconder. Would everyone please like to indicate? Those in favour? Aye. Those against? Maud? Legally carried. Legally carried, I should say. Right. I've got to get used to switching the mic. I've been out of this job for too long. Appointments to outside bodies, panels and other groups. Ross.
Thank you, Chair. Just to summarise the report, as mentioned, nominations for 23-24 outside bodies. 3 groups we've got is for the Chandler's Community Association, that's Councillor Dave Pragnell representing that group on our behalf. Hiltingbury Community Association, which is Councillor James Duguid representing us. And finally, North Millersdale Community Association will be Pamela Holden-Brown reporting back to us on any updates in that group. Thank you, Chair.
Right. Do I have any questions? In which case, do I have a proposer? Do I have a seconder? James. Is there any debate? No. All those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you. I don't have to ask if there are any abstentions. Now I've turned over two pages. Excuse me, I'm getting in the wrong place. Right. Presentation of planning guidelines, please.
Thank you, Chair, and good evening, members. Here is a short presentation on planning guidelines, which include how proposals are determined and the decision-making process at committee level. Planning proposals must be considered on planning grounds, and the committee must determine proposals in line with the development plan, this being the Eastleigh Borough Local Plan, which was adopted in April 2022, and the Hampshire Minerals and Waste Plan, if relevant, unless material considerations indicate otherwise. These material considerations are the relevant policy, government policy, including the National Planning Policy Framework 2012 and its presumption in favour of sustainable development and supplementary planning documents and council strategies. Any planning history to the site or any previous applications or decisions, appeal decisions and any site-specific matters that may occur, such as highway matters, residential amenity, visual amenity, ecology, drainage and trees. Any consultee or third-party comments and any precedent, current case law can also be material considerations. In the decision-making process, decisions made contrary to the recommendation must be explained and minuted with clear reasons given for both either an approval or refusal. If the decision is the option to defer to seek amendments or further information, the committee must indicate what these are, and there is the option to add further controls on these and details required if reasonable in planning terms. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Now we come to planning application 33 Pantheon Road, pages 25 to 36 in our agenda. This one is here because the property is next door to one of our councillors, Anne Buckley.
Thank you, Chair. Agenda item 9 is a householder planning application for the demolition of the existing conservatory and garage and the construction of a 2-storey side and rear extension and a part single-storey rear extension, as well as a loft conversion at 33 Pantheon Road. The local planning authority has received amended plans for this application, whereby a front porch, front dormer and raising of the roof have been omitted from the application, and there has also been a reduction in width to the 2-storey rear extension and amendments to the roof form. Due to this, there has been a description change as noted and consultees and neighbours re-notified. The application site is a linked detached 2-storey dwelling located on the northwestern side of Pantheon Road. The surrounding area is characterised by 2-storey detached and terraced dwellings to the west of Pantheon Road and mainly 2-storey terraced and some semi-detached dwellings to the east. Shown on the screen is the proposed site plan. The blue lines on the plan indicate the location of the existing garage and conservatory and the adjoining neighbours either side of the site. For information purposes, the proposed first floor plan is also shown to show the smaller scale at first floor level. So moving on to the existing elevation plans, which are shown on the screen. And the proposed elevations showing the 2-storey side rear and part single-storey extensions in place, as well as a side storey extension as well. And the front and rear roof lights to the loft conversion. The side and rear elevations also show the existing built form with the blue hashed lines, so a comparison can be seen between the existing and proposed. The majority of the development is located to the rear of the property, and it would be set down from the ridge of the main house. The 2-storey side element would also be set well back from the principal elevation and would be a subservient addition. Moving on to the floor plans, shown on the screen are the existing floor plans to the ground and first floor, as well as the roof plan. And the proposed floor plans. The extension at ground floor level would allow for a larger kitchen diner family area in addition to a gym and utility room. And at first floor level, there would be no additional bedroom. However, the smallest bedroom would be enlarged, and this would include an ensuite and Juliet balcony. There would also be an office room. The proposed loft room would be used as a games and hobby room for the applicant's children. Moving on to the visual impact upon the street scene. As noted, most of the development would be located to the rear and not seen within the public domain. The side extension would be visible when stood directly in front of the house or when standing on Pantheon Road looking south-east, as demonstrated in photos 1 and 2. However, due to the significant setback, the extension is not considered to be a prominent feature within the street scene. When standing on Pantheon Road looking north-east, the development wouldn't be visible due to the dwelling's position and also being set back from numbers 29 and 31 Pantheon Road, as seen in photos 3 and 4. Overall, the proposal is considered to have a minimal impact within the street scene. The neighbours most impacted by the proposal are numbers 31 and 35, and the neighbour further to the west and rear, number 8 Doric Close. Focusing firstly on number 31, as noted, the 2-storey rear element has been amended so that it would not span the whole width of the dwelling, and it would finish just before this bedroom window here. As a result, there are no longer any significant outlook or lighting concerns with regards to number 31, and the majority of the development closest to this neighbour would be the single-storey rear extension. And as the pictures show, the existing conservatory has been in place for several years, and the single-storey extension would be in the same location, extending about half a metre more into the rear garden, but it would have a similar height to that of the conservatory. Number 31 also has an outbuilding in the garden along the shared boundary, which would screen the majority of this extension. So it is considered, due to the amendments made, the existing relationship seen and the screening provided by the outbuilding, the proposal is not considered to have an unacceptable impact to number 31. With regards to number 35, the two-storey side extension would project closer to this neighbour, but a clear gap between the properties would remain. There are two ground floor side-facing windows to number 35, here, that directly face number 33, as shown in photo 4. However, the outlook and light to these windows are already impacted due to their location, as shown in photo 2. These windows also serve a garage and a ground floor WC, which are non-habitable rooms. Given these considerations, the side element would not significantly impact the neighbouring amenities to number 35. And moving on to the two-storey rear element, this would only extend slightly beyond the rear built line of number 35, just about here if you can see. And this would not cause any outlook or loss of light concerns. So overall, the proposal would not cause any unacceptable impact to this neighbour. With the final neighbour, number 8 Doric Close, the two-storey rear extension and Juliet balcony would result in a separation distance of around approximately 20.4 metres between the first floor habitable windows, as demonstrated in photo 1 with the blue arrow. This is slightly under the 22-metre separation distance as recommended in the Quality Places SPD. However, this is guidance and factors have been taken into consideration to mitigate this shortfall. In this case, the Juliet balcony would be angled away from the first floor habitable window with no direct view into this window at 8 Doric Close. The view would be mainly of the rear garden as the green arrow demonstrates. Photos 2 and 3 also show the extensive high trees and hedging between the shared boundary. Photo 2 was taken from the small bedroom window and shows how the trees and hedging already screen the windows to 8 Doric Close, and this would be the case with the development in place. Given these factors, it is considered the proposal would not cause any unacceptable overlooking or loss of privacy to this neighbour. With regards to parking, with the removal of the garage, it would result in the loss of off-street parking. However, the side access along the side of the house here is considered too narrow and restricts vehicular access. Therefore, the garage cannot be used for parking. The property will remain a 3-bedroom dwelling, which requires 2 parking spaces. This is already provided by the existing driveway as shown, and the proposed site plan shows the same parking arrangements with the development in place. Therefore, there are no parking or highway safety concerns. Moving on to the considerations and key points to this application as shown on the slide, the proposal accords with policy. The design, form, layout and scale are of an appropriate size and would not form a prominent feature within the street scene. The proposal would not be harmful to the character of the host dwelling or wider surrounding area and meets parking standards, and there is no unacceptable impact on the amenity of nearby neighbours. Therefore, the recommendation is to permit subject to conditions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for that report. Now, just for the benefit of James and George, I know the answer, but I'm sure you can confirm that the hedge is actually in the garden of Doric Gardens. So I thought it might be, so I thought I'd save you asking. And just another one, I'm particularly thinking of George as he's new on the committee and might not have realised it yet. If he was very eagle-eyed, he would have spotted that you get a little bit of overhang of the party wall by the eaves of the roof. That is perfectly acceptable. It complies with planning. You'll find it in lots of properties around Chandler's Ward. So if you spotted that and wondered why, I'm just explaining that because it isn't on the ground level and it's up high, it is quite normal. I'm trying to be helpful. Right. I open questions then, members.
I didn't really connect the two street scene projections with regard to the roof. We'll have Velux windows on both sides, and is the actual apex line, the height of the roof, raised?
Just to confirm, the roof will not be raised. It was raised originally, but that was omitted, so the roof line will stay the same.
So originally it was going to be raised, but the application has been amended, so it is not being raised.
Yes,
Okay.
that's correct.
Thank you.
In that case, do I have a proposer? Maud, do I have a seconder? George. Is there any debate? In which case, we'll come to the vote. All those in favour, please indicate. Clearly unanimous. Thank you, members. And we carry on now to planning application for 39 Highfield Road, Chelmsford. This is only here because the applicant, Gary Osmond, is well known to those of us who have been on the council for a few years. I think is he senior planner these days? Principal planner. Principal planner, yeah. He's been on the council for a long time, so that because it is a councillor dwelling, it has to come to committee. I'm just explaining for George. It's part of the idea that not only does justice have to be done, it has to be seen to be done. And we have to prove that there's no backhanded deals going on. So we come to this one. I know we've got something to read out from Gary, but I think we'll let Claire do the presentation first, if you could, please. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. Agenda item 10 is a householder application for the erection of a first floor side extension. And as already said, the application is a committee item because one of the applicants, Mr. Osmond, is a member of staff at Eastleigh Borough Council. The application site is a two-storey semi-detached dwelling located on the southwestern side of Highfield Road and towards the end of a cul-de-sac. To the north-east of the site, there is a green open space with two public footpaths which lead to Cumberland Avenue. The surrounding area comprises of similar semi-detached pairs of properties of the same age and character. The proposed site layout shows the development in place, located on the eastern elevation of the property. The existing floor plans are shown here. The property is a 3-bedroom dwelling, and to the rear at ground floor level there is an extension comprising of a kitchen diner. The proposed floor plans show the layout of the first floor extension. This extension would allow for one bedroom to be enlarged and would include an ensuite and an additional bedroom, which would result in a 4-bedroom dwelling. The extension would be supported at ground floor level by 4 brick pillars. The existing elevation plans here show the existing fence line to the boundary and the detached garage to the rear. The proposed elevations show the first floor side extension. The flank eastern elevation wall and pillars would comprise of red brick to match the existing dwelling. The ridge to the extension would be set down from the main ridge of the house and set back from the principal elevation. The front and rear elevations and the roof would comprise of a mid-grey zinc vertical cladding. The proposed windows would match the colour of the cladding. The street scene plan shows an illustrative view of the proposal, showing both a traditional and contemporary design. As the proposed extension is set slightly down and back, it would be subordinate to the host dwelling. It is acknowledged that while the built form of the extension is of a suitable scale, the proposed cladding is somewhat different from what is seen within the street scene. However, as part of the planning process, the new materials have been assessed with regards to the impact on visual amenity within the locality as demonstrated. So from the photos shown, the proposed cladding would be visible to the public realm when standing directly in front of the dwelling. When standing on the 2 footpaths between Highfield Road and Cumberland Avenue, It can be seen from the first photo. The views from this location would be of the proposed brick elevation, much like the existing view you see now. The second photo would give a view of the proposed cladding. However, due to the subservient nature of the development, combined with the more traditional brick elevation, it is considered the view would not be significantly detrimentally harmful to the wider surrounding area. These photos show views of the application sites when looking southeast from Highfield Road. From these photos, it can be seen that the house is set back from the next semi-detached pair, and the views of the proposed cladding, in particular, would be minimal from this location. Additionally, there are tones of grey within the vicinity, including the dwellings directly opposite the site. Here, the tile hanging has been removed and replaced with weatherboard grey cladding, both in a light and dark grey. The zinc cladding proposed would be of a mid-grey colour, and it is considered this colour would fit in with the existing palette range. The zinc cladding is also of a natural high-quality material, which has a matte appearance. And on the slide, there is an example of the zinc cladding on a similar extension. It is outside the borough, but it does show the matte appearance with no sheen to the cladding in the sunlight. So when comparing the example photo, the street scene plan and the properties opposite, it is considered the zinc cladding in mid-grey would blend in with the surroundings. There would also be a recommended condition whereby the local planning authority would approve the type and colour of the zinc cladding prior to its installation to ensure it would be of good quality and not impact upon the street scene. So moving on to residential amenity, the neighbours to the east, numbers 34 and 36 Cumberland Avenue, would be most impacted by the proposed extension, and it is acknowledged the proposal would slightly alter the outlook and light received to the rear windows and garden. However, a daylight test has been applied, and as shown, the proposed extension does not impede past the 25-degree line to either the ground or first floor windows to numbers 34 and 36. Therefore, these properties would still receive a good amount of daylight and would not result in any unacceptable loss of outlook or light, and complies with the Quality Places SPD. There would also be one window to the proposed east elevation, and this is marked as high level and would also be obscurely glazed on the plans, resulting in no overlooking concerns. With regard to parking matters, it is acknowledged the first floor extension and associated pillars would restrict vehicular access to the garage to the rear, resulting in the loss of an off-street parking space. However, the proposed site plan shows the 3 required parking spaces can still be accommodated within the site's curtilage, and to ensure this parking arrangement remains, a condition has been applied stating that the 3 spaces must be provided and retained to ease any potential parking and highway concerns. Lastly, the key considerations and points to this application are that the proposals accord with national and local planning policy. The design, form, layout and scale of the extension would not result in an overly prominent feature within the street scene, nor would it be harmful to the character of the host dwelling or surrounding area. The application also complies with parking standards. As such, the recommendation is to permit subject to conditions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for that. I think it was interesting for some of us, because I think that the planning condition for the extra parking at the front was a recommendation from the parish council. And I know we're all parish councillors, but it's nice to see that the planning committee is actually doing something. So, right, now I think we have a member of the public, in this case, Ross, to read is Gary, a letter from Gary, or note from Gary.
Thank you, Chair. I won't do my Gary Osmond impression as I read out his statement. Dear Councillors, I've asked for this brief statement to be read out as I'm unable to attend this evening's committee meeting. I will not expand upon the details of the proposed extensions, as I'm sure that Claire will have sufficiently set out the proposals in her report and presentation. What I would like to say is that we've lived in Highfield Road for more than 15 years, and over that time it's become our home, where we have married and now raise a family. Whilst we never originally intended to stay for as long as we have, the area has proved to be perfect for us, and we would not wish to live anywhere else. By extending the house, it will allow us to stay in the area we love, whilst accommodating us and our growing daughters. I hope, therefore, that you can support the case officer's recommendation and approve the application. Many thanks, Gary Osmond. Thank you. Chair.
Thank you. Any questions, members? James.
Yeah, very comprehensive presentation. Thank you, Cllr. A couple of things that you may have mentioned, but I didn't pick up on sufficiently. Well, one is a question of fact. The house opposite with the grey tonality, I suspect that didn't require any kind of planning permission. It was just somebody changed the colour of the frontage of their house, would be the case. So, in fact, to say it tones in is fair enough, but I guess the same Gary could be doing with his house. He could set it off in one tone and then, without planning or permission, change it to another tone, which seems an argument in favour of well, it's a question. That was a question, not had an answer. The side elevation, that does look a little bit like a window, two-thirds of the way up. Is that a window that's appeared where there was no window before on the side elevation?
There were 2 windows before, James. So this is actually smaller.
Okay.
Claire did say in the presentation...
Much as I respect the chair, I was...
It was higher. This one is higher. And obscure glazing. You can. There's a picture of the original house as it stands.
Sorry, that was the picture I was trying to find, showing the 2 original windows.
Right, okay. And now, what is it? I mean, assuming the approval is fine, it seems to be one tiny window. Is that right?
Yeah, so that would be a window that serves an ensuite. So it would be high level and obscured glazed. The That's correct.
Yeah. And it's just a little bit less power. The gable end is actually consistent with the roof line of the rest of the house.
It does, it is set down very slightly, so it's slightly subordinate.
Members. Right. And I will own up to I walked past the house this morning on my way up to Fryan for some reason or other, as I frequently do. And this morning was the first time I noticed that the one opposite was grey, because I've been read this report. I looked at the house opposite and thought, it is grey, I've never noticed that before. I've walked past there every week, several times. Right, do I have a proposer, please? Maud. Do I have a seconder? Yeah. George. Thank you. Is there any more debate?
Well, just marginally. I mean, you know, this is innovative materials, distinctive, different. Personally, I welcome that. I think it's adding a little bit of variety. It's making for, rather than, it might be fractionally controversial, but as I understand, nobody's actually objected to this, have they? And in a way, it makes this street more interesting, rather than just totally uniform, repetitive, the same. And it's done, to my mind, tastefully as well, although that probably isn't a planning consideration. Thank you. That's my contribution to the debate, Chair.
I can remember many lectures from Gary on taste and planning design over the years. But actually, it must be an age thing, James. I like traditional. But I don't like these modern materials. They look all wrong to me, but it's because I've got old. Right. No more debate? I'll put it to the vote then. All those in favour, please indicate. Yeah. Thank you, members. Unanimous. Please. We now come to item 11 on the agenda, which is planning appeals. can I ask that we note the planning appeals? Does that, everyone in favour of that? Thank you. They can be noted then. This concludes the actual business of the meeting. I will compliment Claire and thank her for a nice, clear presentations. Well done.
Thank you, Chair.
See, we are nearly human sometimes. But I'll thank everyone. And just say that the date of the next meeting is Wednesday the 20th of September at 7 p.m. Venue to be confirmed. So at 7:57, I declare the meeting closed and thank you very much. Thank you.